Sparks are really going to fly in this video. We're going to talk about how flipping the axle on Rick's cargo camper may have inadvertently caused us to have a blowout. And it doesn't appear that this axle was properly installed, so Rick is going to have new spring seats welded on and reinstall this axle correctly. And Rick is going to talk about tire ratings and what they actually mean. And stay tuned, because all of this could actually save your life.
I wanted to talk about what happened with my trailer.
Be sure to watch more of our cargo camper adventures.
An accident with it, but I also want to provide some information that I think will be very invaluable to anybody who has a travel trailer that they pull or a cargo conversion, or even if you're just thinking about buying a trailer, some things to consider. They could not only save you a lot of money, they could also save you a major disaster. The axle in this trailer is only 2 years old. It was replaced because I hit a bad pothole and it looked like I had bent the axle and one of the wheels seemed to be tilted, what they call negative camber. The original axle was a 4-inch drop, which means it had an offset so that it sat closer to the ground. I decided to put a straight axle on it to raise the trailer up with the thought of maybe putting a water tank or a gray water tank underneath in the future. So I put the straight axle on it, and I originally told them that I wanted to put the axle underneath of the springs to get it up in the air as high as possible. They apparently went and ordered an axle for that application, but then they called me and said, if we do that, it's going to be so high up in the air, the tires are hardly going to be inside the fender. So how about we just put the axle on top of springs? So I agreed, not realizing that they already had the axle and it was designed to be under the springs. So they went ahead and just installed it by flipping it over, didn't put new spring seats on it, and the axle, as a result, had a crown that was crowned the wrong way and caused the trailer to have a very negative camber. And I got about 8,000 miles out of a set of tires before I blew one out in Arizona. We were going down a hill at 65 miles an hour, minding our own business, when this tire decided to just go bang. And pieces of rubber were flying past us at 40 feet in the air as the tire was slapping it and the side of the trailer.
What happened, Rick?
My trailer got a boo-boo.
And it ripped the whole fender off. While we were on the road, the interstate, changing the tire, a real nice truck driver came up, just sat behind us the whole time because it was very, very windy. And with the trucks going by, I guess he didn't want the jack to blow over. So thank you, truck driver. And it was a nightmare because it took the fender off on that side, and I had to go purchase another spare right away and then get another fender and put on it. But another fender, once we found one available, it took 2 cities and had a call about 10 different places, and somebody had one that was the right size. Unfortunately, it didn't match the other fender, so we now have one diamond plate black one and one smooth mill finished aluminum one. Anyway, it was an interesting afternoon. You handled it very well, though.
That's right. We didn't even have to shovel off my seat. I got the tire off. Now the next thing I want to do is a little bit of inspection. There's a possibility this axle actually got bent, that it wasn't necessarily the fault of the guys that did this. I doubt it. I think the axle was still put in upside down, but additionally it could be bent a little bit. If that's the case, then it's bent in another direction. The wheels may not be tracking correctly in and out. I'm concerned that as I look at this, it almost seems like this axle, in addition to being cambered out, it may be towed a little bit. It looks like it's bent a little bit on the forward bias. That probably would be easier to check with my 6-foot level, using it as a straight edge once I get the axle off and out of here. It definitely has a downward bow in it, and that's with no weight on it. It should actually be bowed up, installed upside down. Bent sideways is not founded. Okay. But when I put this on top of the axle, the way that this axle was installed on top of the springs, it was sitting just like it is with the spring seats down on top of the springs. This axle should have an upward crown to it. Instead, it has about a 3/8 downward crown, which would increase once the weight's put on. So what we want is to turn this axle around so that even though it's under the springs, it'll be curved up. See, the gap is wider at the 2 ends where I'm laying on the spring seats than what it is in the middle. So when the trailer has weight on the tires, the weight of the trailer will blow this down to where it's straight. Right now, it's got so much degrees of negative camber, it's causing those tires to wear out prematurely.
These are the spring seats, right? Right here?
Yes.
And you got new ones?
I got new ones to be welded on. I'm going to check them, make sure that they are the right diameter.
What'd you do, just order them?
Yep, I ordered them online. And they are the correct diameter. So what they're going to do is they'll put them on like here, measure to make sure that they're not cocked. They want them to be exactly opposing or directly opposed to the ones that are there. And then he'll weld those on.
What do you do with the ones that are underneath?
You can either leave them there or grind them off. I want to grind them off. And the only reason I want to grind them off is because if you leave them on, where I showed you how the frame got hit because the axle actually came up and hit it once.
Yes.
You'll even have it bump in the frame more with them in place. So they'll need to be ground off or burned off. Waiting to hear from the welder at this point. And I'm about to reinstall this axle. I've had it out to a welding shop and had them install new spring seats. I'm going to grind the old spring seats off so that I have the same clearance between the frame of the trailer and the axle with that axle installed. Put on new springs because of the age, and I didn't really have any factual basis to do that other than what I had read on the internet that said that when springs are about 10 years old they should probably be replaced. It also gave me a chance to look at the bolt holes to make sure there wasn't any excessive wear on them. I put new bolts in, and I took the springs and put them side by side, one old versus the new, and I stood on them and I flexed my legs. And it did feel like the older springs were a little bit weaker than the new ones. I'm probably like a lot of other people out there in that I thought I knew all that I needed to know about tires and axles on my trailer. And man, did I find out I was wrong. Most of the information that you need to make proper decisions on tire purchases and axles is available on the internet, and most of the information about tires is available on the tire itself. But you need to know what those letters and numbers mean. Tires nowadays have both a load rating and a speed rating. At the end of the tire size, there'll be a letter and a number. The letter is the load rating, the number is the speed rating for the tire, and not all tires are made the same. The other thing is the ply rating. Most people think if it says it's a 10-ply tire, it's a 10-ply tire. It's a 10-ply rating. That tire might only have 1 or 2 plies in it, but they're thicker, they're stiffer, and so they are equivalent to having a 10-ply tire. So after we got back from our trip, I had issues that I still had to deal with in order to be comfortable with the result of this trailer, one of which was putting 2 new tires on it. And I went to a tire dealer and I bought Goodyear tires in a heavier load range and a heavier speed rating than what the common tires that you would buy like online or from Walmart, which are typically Chinese manufactured tires. So I feel a little more comfortable now with the ability of this trailer to handle the kind of driving that we did on the road, which was much higher speeds for long distances than what we were accustomed to doing back here in the East. If there seems to be more sway side to side on a trailer, as an example, also be an indicator that you don't have enough air pressure in your tires, and that's also important. Whatever the tire indicates as being the maximum air pressure, that's what they should be kept at, because that's required in order to give the sidewalls on the tire the proper stiffness to be able to handle the weight. There's a lot of engineering factors that I learned in doing some research for this video, but if you go and look at the charts, you'll see that the higher the letter, the higher the load range, meaning the higher, more weight that the tire is capable of handling. And also you'll see the speed ratings for the maximum speed that the tire is capable of going.
You believe this axle was put on improperly, and speak a little bit about that. What could you have done to protect yourself? What did you do wrong, if anything, with agreeing for them to flip it that way? Talk a little bit about that. How can a consumer make sure they got what they paid for?
Well, the problem that I had was blind faith. I also had another case with my van where I took it in and had the front end aligned, and the guy actually made it worse than what it was when I took it in. And I failed to do anything about it right away, and I ended up having to replace a set of tires for me.
Maybe you should have acted sooner and listened to your gut.
Yeah, I'm just not the kind of guy that gets up in somebody's face right away. Perhaps I should be, because it's cost me a lot of money over time. I guess maybe I don't trust my gut enough, and I put too much faith in, quote, professionals that's supposed to know what they're doing.
You really didn't know what implications or could go wrong with them flipping it if they didn't do it the right way.
Right, I didn't have foreknowledge of it. I just thought all axles were straight to begin with,
Okay.
that you could do it either way. I since went on the internet and did some research and found out that's not at all the case.
You should check your tires more to make sure they're inflated properly, and then also look at the wear and make sure they're wearing evenly.
Yes, yeah, you should not just wear, you should inspect the tires for cuts or possible having a nail in them, things like that. So you want to look at those tires pretty regularly when you're out on the road on a trip.
Did you do that?
I did after the blowout. I looked at them a lot more frequently.
Okay.
And I did look at them before. Almost every time we would stop for gas or food, when I'd get out of the vehicle, I'd look at my tires on the van and the trailer, right away, just mostly to see if they're low, but also to start looking for defects.
But I think now you would look closely with a more critical eye.
Oh, definitely.
Was it difficult to take off the axle and change the springs and put the axle back on?
The axle wasn't difficult at all. These particular springs, even with the axle over top of them, I didn't even have to drop the springs to get the axle out. It fit between the springs and the frame. The hardest part of it was getting the old spring bolts out, because they're serrated on one side and they're torqued pretty hard. So it was a little bit difficult to get them to break loose. So the next step for me is to take this thing out for a road test and see how it handles. I think we're going to do a day trip with it. I'd like to take it maybe down to the gun range.
Be sure to check out more of Rick and Sharon's cargo camper adventures.